Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Yo, what up, everybody? Welcome back to the Courtside. I'm your host, Akash, as always. And sitting across from me is Connor, my co-host. And then today, also, we have a special guest, Brandon. He's a friend of ours, and he'll be on the show today, just, talking about NBA, NFL, and then also a special category today of discussion. We're going to be talking about No Way Home, the recent Spider-Man movie, just as a out of sports context kind of topic. We usually don't do this a lot, but we're trying to start the new year off fresh. We'll see how it goes. But I think the first topic we had for discussion was concerning NBA All-Star voting, and then also some recent news of late in the league. I think the teams that have really progressed thus far, past few weeks. I think the Memphis Grizzlies are on an 11-game win streak, which is really that's remarkable. And I think also the Bulls are on a streak for themselves as well. The Mavs, I know I was watching, I was kind of surprised because I think last episode I was saying the Mavs look absolute trash, and they're on a streak too. I think it just ended, but it was like a 5-game win streak. I know, Connor, you were pointing out a streak by the 76ers too, like 7-game, 3-game, whatnot. But yeah, that kind of stuff. Connor, do you have any points on just top tier teams that are just, blowing everybody's expectations out of the water, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, the most surprised that I've been is with the rise of the Grizzlies. John Morant is an all-star starter for sure. He's even, in my opinion, he's even entered the MVP conversation a little bit. Maybe not top tier because KD, Giannis, maybe even Embiid, they're probably a little bit higher than him. But as you know, I'm a big 76ers fan. So about 4 years ago, Ben Simmons, Embiid, and Ben Simmons was in his rookie year. They were on the come up. They won like 20 games in a row, I think. They remind me a lot of this Memphis team. They're young. They're hungry. They have the urge to make the playoffs and advance deep into the playoffs. But that's going to be hard to do with the Warriors, the Suns. There are a lot of good teams in the West, but you never know. I mean, they have an MVP candidate. Anything can happen.
Right. That makes sense. And I think, John Morant, I think he's definitely probably he was in the MVP conversation a couple of weeks back. I think he was at number 5 on the ladder, and he might be. I don't think he's on there quite yet, but I think he is on runner up. The candidates that aren't listed directly on the ladder. I think 7th or 6th, some position like that. Which is actually a good topic. Also, the MVP race. I think right now Giannis is spearheading that, and then I think right behind him is KD or Jokic, one of those two. Giannis, do you think 3-time MVP, does he deserve it this year if his streak continues? Because for me, I feel like KD is still I know I said Steph earlier, but I mean besides Steph, probably KD is my next best bet. I don't know if Giannis is worthy right now this year. Well, he is worthy, but I still think KD has that edge over him. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know that Giannis 3 times in a row. I mean, KD has just done more to me with no Kyrie, obviously, with whatever's going on. And then Harden has been in and out. You never know what you're going to get. But like you said, Steph, the Warriors are kind of on a little bit of a decline right now. So I would move him lower also. But just what KD is doing in their depth, they have no bench players. So I think I said this in an earlier episode, he's kind of carrying the young guns. He's kind of moved into that mentor role, but he's also putting up insane numbers. So as of right now, he'd be my MVP.
On the contrary to that, I think Golden State's kind of like that. Steph's being that mentor for them as Clay's still out. So I think that's also a good thing to look at. He's kind of in that position as he gets older, but he's still carrying them with his insane stats and actually achieving the 3-point record, which is incredible.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this morning I was eating breakfast and I was looking at a news article, and the only players to have a career average of 27 points or higher, a career average again. And there's like six players in total, I think. It was MJ obviously, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, uh, someone else from years past, and then the two current players on there are LeBron and then KD. Uh, KD is no surprise. I mean, he's probably the best scorer, most versatile scorer in today's game. I think, yeah, KD MVP. I think we've even discussed this way back in the past. Along those lines of superstar players, the top tier players, it kind of leads into All Star voting and uh, the All Star game, which is I think March. I think, yeah. But I think the second results or the second round of results are out. Um, I think, yeah, KD is number one in the East for one of the positions, whatever it is. And then right behind him is Giannis. And then I forget who the guards are in the West. I know Steph is number one in votes, I think. Right behind him is either Luca or someone else. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, Jaw's right behind Steph. And then
Right,
in the
right, yeah.
East, it's DeMar.
DeMar. Yeah. Okay, yeah. DeMar, Ja, Steph. Yeah, I know that. Is someone on there like who is worthy of being on there? And then do you think someone should be on there? Because I think Derrick Rose is on one of those sides, right? I think that was kind of cool to see him.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was just gonna say he was seventh in the voting, and I was surprised that DeMar DeRozan could just walk into the Bulls and just take over the way he's done. So that's why
Yeah.
he's leading in the East.
Yeah, I think he's had a big impact because they weren't even close to making the playoffs this year. And obviously you had Vucevic, you had Lonzo, you had Alex Caruso. They just have a good squad. But then I also wanted to point out, how is Kyrie Irving getting All-Star votes? Like,
Right, right.
he's
That's
played
just
like 3 games the entire season.
yeah.
He's
That's
sixth in the
just weird.
entire guards. He's above Fred VanVleet, who, by the way, amazing fantasy pickup. He's like 50,000 votes away from LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball has played every game. He's almost averaging, well, sort of close to averaging a triple double. But yeah,
Yeah,
honestly, could move LaMelo up over James Harden's been kind of inconsistent. Zach LaVine, I mean, he's playing pretty good, but LaMelo is, I mean, the um, the Hornets are an up and coming team. They just recently snapped the 76ers 7 game winning streak, which broke my heart, but it's he's he's gonna get up there for all-star starter. He's definitely gonna make the all-star game.
I think Connor. I think you had a prediction last year, or during like off-season predictions, and you said I remember this. You said DeMar is probably going to go to the Bulls, and lo and behold, he is on the Bulls now. And I think Brandon, you mentioned that like just coming out of nowhere. I think what really changed for him was like playing with the Bulls. It reminds me a lot of DeMar on the Raptors. Like I see him coming into that old DeMar form again. He's just so much more lively. Getting more aggressive on outbreak and stuff. And I think it's just basically the new environment. I think that's the best part. And like you said, Connor, those other guys are probably helping him. And Kyrie making the All Star list, I think that's just bizarre. Uh, Personally, if I don't know, I mean we still have until March, but I don't really know if a part time player really deserves being part time, and that too, like he missed like I don't know how many months, 6 months, something like that. But I don't really know if that's. I mean, there's so many other players who might be actually worthy of having that spot. But yeah, and then also Lamelo, that's for sure facts, right? Because I mean, last year he blew our minds. This year he's also blowing our minds away. The Hornets are really fun to watch, just like the Bulls. But yeah, and then I think some of them, yeah, I think AD is on the All Star voting list as well. Do you think some of those guys like in the West, I think for the backcourt or front court, I don't know, but one of those. Do you guys think like someone in the West is probably deserving or not deserving, vice versa?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Anthony Davis and also Paul George, all only played like a month of games. It's kind of unfair to the rest of the players. Like Draymond Green has been huge in the Warriors' surge to the top or second place or whatever. And Karl Anthony Towns he's like the main player for their organization. So you can't just put him below players who just don't even play. It kind of shows to how much fan voting is kind of should be taken. They should just get rid of it in general. Like there's kind of no point. I mean, I get that you want to see your favorite players play, but to an extent, it should be over.
I think they should still have like a voice in it, but like maybe like 50% of like the overall vote should be like just random people, and then the other half can come from other sources.
There's some kind of percentage divide, but I'm not sure exactly how it works. But yeah, that's probably a good point as well.
Okay, now we are going to move on to our NFL transition and talk about playoff predictions, MVP voting, maybe any dark horse candidates to make the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl. So I want to ask you, Brandon, who is your pick for the MVP based on this 2021-2022 season?
Well, we're both going to seem biased here, but Aaron Rodgers, I mean, come on. He's had such a phenomenal year. He has a broken toe and he's still playing at this phenomenal elite level. Yeah, it's just a no-brainer to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say for a while I had Jonathan Taylor. He just was their entire offense, and he was kind of leading them. They beat the Patriots at one point. I think they had a shot at winning their division. But then he kind of he didn't really fall off, but they just started losing. And most people probably saw that devastating loss to the Jaguars. That was kind of embarrassing. So,
yeah.
I mean, there's no other choice in Rodgers right now. I mean, well, actually, I guess you could give it to Tom Brady. I mean, to see what he's done, basically no receivers. Fournette's been out for a while, and they still end up winning their division, getting the second seed, and having a good shot at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's true.
I would just give it to Rodgers right now, but I could see either one.
Yeah.
Connor, just a fun fact, but I think your guy, Joe Burrow, is third on the race. I mean, that's just something I thought was kind of cool. I mean, I still think probably Rodgers is way ahead, but that's just interesting to see that he's already such an impact on the league.
Yeah, I mean, I do love me some Joe Burrow, but it's just hard to give it to him because he had a lot of early season struggles. He had a game against the Browns where they just got blown out, and the Browns are pretty bad. So he came on strong, obviously, and he's gonna be in the MVP conversation in future years. But in terms of this year, I would just have to give it to Rodgers because he had a more complete game. There wasn't really an outlier in his game. Every game is consistently 200 yards, multiple touchdowns. It's just more consistent overall.
Mm-hmm. What do you think on the offensive MVP? Who do you think's getting that offensive player of the year?
I would have. You said offensive?
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to give it to. Well, I guess you could say Rodgers or Brady again, but I mean, it's kind of hard to go to anyone else because, like I said, Jonathan Taylor. I guess you could put in some receivers. You could say Cooper Kupp. He's been phenomenal this year. Devontae Adams, but they're not able to put up that production if they don't have Aaron Rodgers or Matthew Stafford. So I would probably give it to a quarterback.
That's true. Yeah, I feel like Jonathan Taylor or Cooper Kupp could easily swoop in there. I know it's easy to give the quarterback the spot, but I feel like this year there might be a little change since Jonathan Taylor his touchdown and yards percentage were just incredible this year. So I don't know. I think we can still look out for that, and I think that's a very high probability that one of those happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think that any of them, they're all very deserving of getting it, but I feel that awards don't necessarily mean that much to a player. Like let's say I was in the NBA and I got like a MVP, but then like Giannis did when he won the MVP, they all lose pretty early on. So I just feel like actually winning is just more important to most players. But I mean, it's still important because like it's legacy, and you get like debates on who's the best quarterback, and you say, oh, Rodgers won MVP, so that's very important, obviously. But I feel like in their terms of their minds, just winning the Super Bowl is way more important.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
I was going to ask you who would be your Super Bowl predictions from the NFC and the AFC?
Ooh, okay. This is gonna be a good one. So, AFC is kind of funky right now because they all have a phenomenal chance, or not all have a phenomenal chance, but like it's up in the air in the AFC because I could easily see Tennessee just running away with it after getting Derrick Henry back because Kansas City's defense is just destroyed right now. So I could just see them running all over them if they met in the AFC Championship. So right now, I'm going to say Tennessee for the AFC, and then NFC. It's hard to go against my Packers. I don't want to get my hopes up, but the Buccaneers aren't looking great. The Cowboys have had a couple of losses, and the Rams just they could lose to any team at this point. So I'm going Titans Packers. It's funny that I'm choosing the 2-1 seeds, but I think that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah, I agree with the Packers. I do feel like you said the Rams could lose to anyone, but I feel like I've talked to you and Akash about this, but the Rams, they scare me a lot. It's just, I don't know I don't know why they do, but just coming off of last year, I remember the Packers beat them in the divisional round, I think. They just feel like they have that urge to come back and beat the Packers because they lost last year. They have probably the best wide receiver in the NFL, and I think Matthew Stafford is very underrated.
Really? I think he's overrated.
Really?
Personally, yeah. He throws way too many interceptions and just terrible balls. Like he leads the league in pick sixes. So I just think that's a careless thing that he has, and that's one of his traits. So I feel like that's a huge disadvantage coming into the playoffs.
That's true. But I agree that on like the long term, it's kind of like Carson Wentz. It could go either way. But if you give me a 1-game playoff, Rams versus Packers, it could go either way. I could see Matthew Stafford just going off for like 300 to 400 yards. It just really worries me.
That's very true. But I think since the Packers are getting back Jair Alexander and then Bakhtiari's coming back and then Zadarius Smith should be fully healed. And then I think even Aaron said he's going to be nearly 100% by the divisional round. And that's a scary team right there. I think all three of those were all pros last year, or either the year before that. And so I just think that's a huge advantage unless something crazy happens. I think they're leading.
Yeah, I do think that the Packers, they would be my pick to make the Super Bowl. I do think that, I think they would beat the Buccaneers. I think they would I think that they would beat the Rams. And then please remind me, I don't remember who the third seed was. Was it?
It's Dallas.
Oh, Dallas. Yeah,
they have San Fran.
They can beat Dallas. I'm not worried about that. But then moving on to the East, I think I've talked about this in basketball. In football, it's kind of the same. You have to have that guy that shows up in the playoffs. You can't just show up your first year and dominate the playoffs. Well, I guess unless you're like Patrick Mahomes or something. But the Titans don't have that. They have some experience, but it's just hard to bet against the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. He's made 2 Super Bowls, and I just can't – I don't really see them losing to the Titans, especially if Derrick Henry's not 100%.
Okay.
So I'm going to actually take the Chiefs and the Packers. But that's really hard to pick between a Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the Packers, which, by the way, that would be a phenomenal Super Bowl to watch. But
that'd be awesome. Yeah.
I would probably take the Packers just because they're a more complete team. They're not just one quarterback, an offensive game. The Chiefs defense is kind of struggling, and the Packers, if you like all those guys, if they get all those guys that you talked about coming back, I would pick them over the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on my side, I'm not a huge NFL geek, and you guys probably know that too. But obviously, I try to keep up with all the headlines and biggest rumors, events, whatnot. And from my perspective, I think the Rams. I haven't deeply followed their season, but from what I can understand from my outside scope, is I kind of see a buildup of momentum, right? And just what I've heard as well. And then the other perspective, I don't really know. I think, like you said, I think Brian or Connor would, but I think Titans may actually have a chance as well. So I think it'd be kind of interesting to see Rams versus Titans, or other ways around with Packers versus Titans. That'd be kind of cool as well. And then I think one interesting question I had was, and either one of you can bounce off each other, but there's been a lot of injuries, a lot of hardships, a lot of stuff with COVID. There's been a lot of obstacles for players, right? Teams as well. And I think no award really defines that courage to overcome those obstacles more than comeback player of the year. And I think right now, who's leading it? I think Joe Burrow is leading the race, and then behind him, Dak Prescott, and then third, Nick Bosa, four, Jimmy Garoppolo, and then onwards, Tyron Smith, Cortland Sutton, whatever. Do you guys have a take on that? I might have one as well, but just someone who's retaliated from all that, from all those obstacles that I was mentioning earlier.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard for me not to be biased because I'm like a huge Joe Burrow fan. But yeah, I've got to give it to Joe Burrow. I mean, he hasn't even played a full year in the NFL. He tore 3 muscles in his leg, like completely snapped. And he's putting up MVP caliber numbers. Because you've seen Dak Prescott, you've seen him do it before, and he has a better team around him. The Bengals sure they have some good receivers, but their offensive line is terrible. And to be winning the division, putting up MVP numbers behind a terrible offensive line, coming off of 3 torn muscles in your knee, is just incredible to me. I can't pick anyone else.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there. I mean, there's a stat. Joe Burrow's been sacked 51 times and Dak only 29. And Joe Burrow still has 500 more passing yards and a better completion percentage. I mean, that just shows who's the better quarterback. And he had that adversity of those ligaments. I mean, that's just an impossible feat to overcome. And they got a decent shot in the playoffs. So I think you got to give it to him there.
Yeah. I mean, of those candidates, I think the only ones who are worthy are, like you guys mentioned, Burrow and then also Prescott, if you're going to include another one. Obviously, Prescott had his shining moments this year, but I think, like you guys said, Burrow, I mean, we all saw him right last year being carried off the field on that little go-kart thingy, but that was devastating to watch, and you could see, like, the emotions just crumple. And then this year, I mean, he's already on the MVP race. He's already on that radar, and that's incredible considering he's so young. And we know his legacy at college as well. And I think that this definitely shows that he's going to be here for a long time and have a really big impact on this league as well. That being said, lots of emotions with injuries and losses in the league, and then also, just failures, ups and downs. Kind of similar to the recent movie, No Way Home, right? A lot of different mixed emotions, a lot of mixed reviews. Some people say it's one of the greatest movies of all time. Some people say it wasn't living up to expectations. Some may say it was overrated, underrated, vice versa. Well, all three of us just saw the movie, I think, at different times, whatever it is. Well, we're finally all seen the movie. Also, big alert, there are going to be spoilers in this segment, so, beware. But from my point of view and then my take on the movie, I think, personally, I thought it was a really good movie. I think it was easily the best Spider-Man movie of all time. Do I think it's the greatest movie ever? Maybe not. Maybe that's questionable. But regardless, I mean, the stats show it for itself. I think it's 1.3 and continuing $1 billion in gross revenue. I think it's 8th in all-time grossing revenues for movies, and just highly touted. I think a 5-star, 4.9 star, or 95% Rotten Tomatoes score as well. But do you guys have any takes on that? I know we all saw that. I think we all really liked the movie, but of course, various opinions on the movie as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Being a fan of everything Marvel since Tobey Maguire, I've seen every Spider-Man movie, 3 of Tobey's, 2 of Andrew's, and then all the Tom Holland ones. And I saw a good comparison the other day on how Tom Holland, his first 2 movies they're really good movies, but he never grew as a character. He never had to fight that adversity. But when Aunt May died in the movie, he finally had to verse some adversity. And then at the very end, when he had everything erased from him, And I loved how that was one of my favorite aspects of the movie, of him growing as a character, because he was always just this lighthearted kid who never had to worry about anything. And of course, he was like trying to be killed and stuff, but like he never had that emotional stress. And I feel like bringing that into the movie just set it over the top and made it, like you said, the best Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, I feel like it was the best Spider-Man movie. I probably have like the least experience out of the three of us. I watched the Tobey Maguire. I never really watched the Andrew Garfield. And I think that I've watched all of the Tom Holland movies, but in terms of most action, most emotionally like considerable to all of the Spider-Man, I would say it would be the best, just because you had all three fighting at the same time with like basically all of the villains, other than like the newer ones, but like with the Green Goblin, it just brought everything back into one movie. I thought it was pretty cool to see them like fighting against different quote universes. I just thought it was pretty cool in general.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Brandon, like you said, uh Peter Parker, obviously Tom Holland had to fight a lot of adversity in this in this film as well, right? But that adversity came with a big cost, right? I think yeah, this is probably like the biggest Spider-Man like sacrifice. Like every hero has a sacrifice, right? In every film or every comic, whatever. I mean, you saw it in like Endgame, right? Like Iron Man's sacrifice kind of was, you know, killing himself or being a martyr, or you know, Captain America staying back in time, and other sacrifices as well. But they all had their respective sacrifices, and I think like the ending scene of No Way Home was kind of resemblant of that, erasing the memory of Peter Parker for the greater good of people, right? So I think it was pretty cool to see. I definitely really appreciate like Marvel technology and just bringing back all these phenomenal actors and characters. That was just mind blowing to me, and very sentimental as well. Just the message, and then also just you know, all like collectively bringing and combining like so many years of Spider-Man and just the Marvel universe. I thought that was really cool as well. Do you guys think, uh, like out of all Marvel movies, this is the best or one of the best, or is there something that's still at the top, spearheading?
I think it's easily top 5, maybe even top 3. But I think you got to give it to Infinity War, or at least for me, Infinity War and then Civil War, because they just had, I mean, this Spider-Man had a lot of emotions with it, but like there was just so many characters that we all got to know through all the multiple films that came together in like the Avengers Infinity War movie and then the Civil War movie. I think it was just the even though there was a lot of action in it, the main part that we took away from it was the emotional aspect. And that's why I think those two are, I think, yeah. And then I'd say the third one would be No Way Home. And those would be my top 3.
Yeah, I don't think I could say it's like my top favorite movie, but I mean it's up there because like obviously like you said, some of the Avengers movies were better because they had Iron Man, Captain America, Spider-Man. They had like all of the superheroes throughout the last decade of Marvel history, basically. But I mean, this movie did surprise my expectations. It was better than I expected, just because it had a better moral story than some previous Spider-Man. They're fighting the bad guys, but then like, okay, spoiler if you haven't seen it, just like watch out. But when Tobey Maguire like stops Tom Holland from killing the Green Goblin, it was just like a better overall moral aspect to the entire story.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I mean, for me, I think out of all Marvel movies specifically, I would probably rank Endgame number one. That's just me, and then at tying at 2 or maybe 3 is, like you said, Brandon, Civil War, and then No Way Home. I think, yeah, so one of the best movies in the MCU, or just Marvel in general. But yeah, a lot of good stuff coming out of it. Uh, who knows what's gonna come next with all this? I mean, the reason they wiped his memory in the first place was to, you know, establish a clean new slate, to work with for future movies. But yeah, it's kind of kind of the wrap. Also the wrap of this episode, wrap of that trilogy, whatnot. But I think, yeah, we kind of summed up, those three topics: NBA, NFL, and then also No Way Home. I think it was a great twist to our usual agenda. Brandon, thank you for joining us today. Hopefully, we'll have you back in the future, in future episodes as well. But I think this was a great time. I think one of the best episodes we had so far. Great diversity. Any thoughts, final thoughts before we close it off?
Yeah, it was just great to have me here. Love doing podcasts and love talking about the NFL for sure. And even, branching off into other topics. So thank y'all for having me, and I'll be back soon.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, anyways, you guys know where to find us on Instagram, @the_courtside_, YouTube, Spotify, everything else. Without further ado, we'll see you guys later. Peace.
Check